we're at the Green Burial Chronicles with Morgan Oaks. I'm Stephanie Brow, and who are you?
I'm Nikki Shoop.
And Nikki, what do you do? How are you involved with Morgan Oaks?
Well, thankfully, I've been involved thanks to you, but I am the cemetery consultant. So I'm in charge of all the outreach, networking, and do all the invoices and contracting and things like that.
Perfect. Cool. So we thought we would do a little something different today. Instead of interviewing a family or someone surrounding our business, we kind of wanted to talk about where have we been, what have we learned, and where are we going? So today we're going to talk a little bit about the beginning of Morgan Oaks, the middle of Morgan Oaks, and then what's to come in the future. I think it's super important to educate people on, it's cool to hear all the stories. It's cool to hear, specialties as far as like grief and those types of things. But I also think for listeners that are like, that's all cool, but like, what is this? What does this look like behind the scenes? So, let's talk a little bit about the beginning of Morgan Oaks.
Yeah.
So what would you want to know?
So I would say, one of the biggest things, are you surprised at how big the movement has become?
Sure. I think, let's see, I have been there almost 6 years. We started in COVID, and I think we had this idea that, oh my gosh, everybody was going to call us, everybody was going to need us. And what we found out was COVID meant nobody was coming. Nobody even knew who we were. What I found is that now that people are getting educated on what green burial is, it's becoming something that more and more people are wanting. Once they understand it, once they know what it involves, and that, oh my gosh, this is far less and far more beautiful, sign me up.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a big thing.
Yeah. What were some of the earliest challenges you found? Because I know you talked about COVID. I think people just kind of go traditional cemeteries and burial during that time. But what else? What were some of the after COVID, some of the early challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenges is people thought we were a new business, which Morgan Oaks was a new business. But our owners have been in business for 30 plus years doing wildlife mitigation. And so this was just an offset of part of their stuff. Education. I think, I'm 44. And, I've always known I've seen a lot of death in my life early on as a child. And what we knew was you embalm people, you do a viewing, you do a huge funeral service in a chapel, and then you vault and you do all these things. That's just all I knew. And so I don't know that the world knows that there's other options. And so coming into the world and being like, hello, we have something new. People don't like change. People don't like new if they don't understand it.
Right.
And a lot of the world didn't understand and still doesn't understand what is involved with green burial. And we're going to talk a little bit about the myths, which I think are awesome to educate people on that. But that was probably some of the biggest challenges, just lack of education and even knowing it existed.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing right now, too. I didn't even know what green burial was before I started with this, which I think it's really the only way to go now, in my opinion. But what do you think, what are some of the things that surprised you most with families wanting to now choose green burial?
Yeah, I think that families are finding, one, we're about a third of the cost. So it's more affordable. I think families are finding that it's more beautiful. One of the myths that we'll overcome is that green burial is just a place where you just go and dump the body or you just let it be. It is more simple, but it's more beautiful and elegant, I think, more peaceful. I think what's really surprised me and what families are finding is that it's just a peaceful, serene, and it's helping the grief journey. So for me, my dad I just celebrated my dad's 5-year anniversary. And I love having him there. I mean, obviously I'm biased because I'm there all the time and it's, our cemetery, but I love the fact that I can visit him in a beautiful, peaceful place. I can bring my dog if I want to walk up there, if I want to eat dinner with him, which I will on Saturday. His favorite was El Pollo Loco. And so we'll watch the sunset and do that. And so I think we see way more visitors, and not in an influx at all, but people come back and celebrate, birthdays or Mother's Day or Father's Day or whatever, instead of just burying someone and being like, all right, they're there and I'm going to move on with my life. We're seeing Morgan Oaks and green burial as more of a place for people to come and walk through their grief journey.
Yeah. They want to be there. They want to come visit. Yeah. What is like, I mean, we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but I know, I mean, I've seen this since I've been there too, but like the public perception of it all, like, what do you think, how has that changed?
Sure.
Especially in the last few years.
I think originally people, when we first got this property, people were like, absolutely no, I don't want that in my backyard. I don't know what it is. Lots of questions about what does it look like? Because again, it's not something you see every day where a cemetery opens in 160-acre farmland territory. Nor do you see a cemetery open very often, right? That's not something that you're like, oh, a new storage unit. I mean, you see those pop up every other day, a new Starbucks, a new coffee shop. And so I think originally people were like, we don't want that. We don't want dead people in our backyard. We don't, all the things.
Yeah.
And now what we're seeing is people are like, one, you're the quietest neighbors that we could ever ask for. But also it's very respectful and they want this. They want their loved ones there, right? It's a community effort of having, mom and dad love to come here and enjoy nature, walk the paths, grab a glass of wine across the street and come over. And so they want their loved ones there because it's what they loved or their mom and dad's loved or their dog loved to walk it. And, there's a space for them out in Rainbow Bridge. And so it creates community.
Yeah, I think people are surprised. That's one of the biggest things I hear all the time is they're surprised to learn what it is. It just looks like a big park, so they come. We have a lot of people that use it for that too. But
right.
But yeah, I just think they're surprised to know that it is they can come to a park-like setting to visit their loved ones who are right there. So, and I guess that kind of answers the next question too. But like, what do you think? Why do people have such an emotional connection to the place?
I'll speak personally.
Yeah.
I think being out in nature in an open setting like that just allows just so much energy to come out for you to grieve it, to walk in nature. And some listeners might be like, well, you could walk a cemetery. I will tell you, if you go to a cemetery and then you go to Morgan Oaks, a green burial cemetery, I don't know all of them. There's not a lot in California. But for us personally, there's a different type of feeling. And because we're not on the freeway, we're not in a neighborhood, we're off the beaten path just enough. You just hear the sound of the birds chirping. Yeah. You hear the rustling of the wind in the leaves. You get to see an oak tree at your loved one's burial plot. Like, it just feels different. It's not sad and somber. You get to watch beautiful sunsets. I mean, there's a place in Lincoln where people pull off the side of the road to watch the sunsets because Lincoln has some of the most exquisite sunsets and sunrises. And Morgan Oaks, we have this beautiful platform to do the same thing. And so we're blessed with that for sure.
Yeah, it's really hard to put a word on sometimes. I feel like when I'm out there, it's just outside of peaceful, which just is kind of very generic, I feel like, for the place. But it's true. It's very true. So, okay, you want to talk myths?
Yeah, let's talk some myths. These are always fun. So I love talking about myths. I think it's funny now that I'm here and educated. So I teach once in a while at Sac State and AR. That one's not as mythy. But at Sac State, we get a lot of people that are like, well, what I've heard. And, I giggle a little bit, but the reality is they're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably what I would think too if I didn't work there and didn't look around and educate. So I totally get it. But I want to be the myth buster today. Obviously, I don't know everything. So go check your sources. But also, I don't know if you know this, but everything you read on the internet is not always true. So it's crazy. I know. But these are some of the myths that I am going to have you present that we've heard over the last almost 6 years. So we've almost been in business 6 years, which is wild to think about. But let's start with the first one.
Yes. So the first one is that the bodies are going to contaminate the groundwater.
Totally a great thought. Because it is scary. So for the listeners, in a traditional cemetery, you have what we call vaulting, which is a liner that they put in the burial plot, and that's usually concrete. I have heard of one place that uses plastic, which is wild. Then you're put in a heavy metal casket with lacquer and everything, and then you're embalmed. And so basically what you've done is preserve the body for years and years and years. Now, my brain says, why would we ever want to do that? Like, what are we preserving a body underground for? I think it's scary to think like what happens to your loved one after they die. You know, the body deteriorates, and that's scary. So the reason that they vault it is, you know, they're worried about what happens with all the fluids and things like that and preservation of the body. So in green burial, we don't have vaulting. We don't embalm. We do not have heavy metal caskets or lacquer on our casket. Everything is biodegradable. So it breaks down. We bury 4.5 to 5 feet. Sorry, I might have ruined a myth, but 4.5 to 5 feet deep, which allows for the perfect place for the body to decompose. Okay. So the concern is that what happens when the body decomposes is the fluids, and y'all who are science people and biologist people, you can go look up what those fluids are, but they leak from the body. And the concern is that when they leak from the body, they get into the soil and basically go down and can get into groundwater. Well, a couple of things happen. Number one, soil is one of the best resources to clean like that type of contamination. The second thing is that only goes so far, especially with soil and, you know, rocks and things like that. Now, could it go further in some places if the water table's higher or what? Yes. Okay. So every soil is different. Every location is different. But reality says it's not going to go all the way. It doesn't flood downstream. It'd be like saying, oh my gosh, if a deer died on top of the ground, that body decomposes at some point. Where does that go? Now, the other thing is there are laws in place that don't allow us to build an interment site right next to a waterway, a stream, a water well, anything. So there are laws that say it has to be about 100 feet set back. So that way there's no runoff, things like that. And in most cases, I mean, if you went out to Morgan Oaks, we're nowhere near water. Other green burial cemeteries, they also are pretty far back. But there are stipulations in place that say you cannot put it right next to the stream. Right. So that is false.
Right.
Myth.
And it sounds like what you're saying is you guys have done your research and are making sure it is done right so that doesn't happen. So, okay, the next one is that green burial is more expensive than traditional.
Sure. I don't know where that stems from actually, or why people would think that, because it kind of goes against another myth we're going to talk about, but it's not. Like I just said, you don't have vaulting, you don't have embalming. Caskets, we just looked it up, are roughly like $10,000 to $12,000. Our highest casket is around $3,500. So it's actually about a third of the cost than a traditional burial site, cemetery. And that's in California, you know, so if you're somewhere else listening to this, those numbers may look a little bit different, but it is far less because we don't have anything to upsell you on. You simply are getting your beautiful plot, your beautiful location, a headstone if you so choose, but you're not paying for all the additional things that a traditional cemetery has to have.
Right. And you're paying everything up front. So at the time of passing and burial, there's nothing that the family has to pay, which I think is super important. Yes, so that is also false, as always will be. So myth number 3 is that green burial means no memorialization.
Also interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Because I don't know why people would think that. And we've heard that a lot. Like, well, do you allow for a service or do you allow for a headstone? Or the answer is yes. I mean, just because it's green burial does not mean you can't have a service. So we run just like a traditional burial where you can come watch your loved one be lowered, laid to rest. You can even place dirt on top of it, on top of the casket. You could put flowers in. I mean, I think that we actually can do more to memorialize your loved one than a traditional cemetery. So, yeah, and we have headstones. They're flat. You don't have to have a headstone, but I think, we absolutely have ways to memorialize, and it's more beautiful. It's simpler, I would say, but probably more beautiful.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that, where I think what some people don't realize is we're like a traditional cemetery in the sense that you do get your own plot, so you know where you're not just not put out there willy-nilly. You know where your loved one's going to be to visit them. But yeah, it is more simple but more beautiful. I agree. So, okay, myth number 5.
Oh, that one's false then. So
Oh, yes.
everyone, just so you know,
They are all
false.
false.
You can memorialize.
In a better way, like you said, I do think we do it better. So yes. So myth number 5: bodies must be buried immediately.
Ooh, I just got this question. Yes and no. Not immediately.
yeah.
Obviously, there are religions that have a timeline that's very quick. So the Jewish community, their timeline is very quick. So yes, that would be more immediate than others. Now, the reason people say this, if you're listening and you're like, well, why does that matter? Is because there's no embalming. So embalming typically allows you to hold the body for much longer and not have to bury it as quickly, right? You can still refrigerate with green burials. So our ceremonies or our burials can happen anywhere from 3 days, 2 days to the maximum would be 3 weeks. That's really more the funeral home's call, but they can refrigerate and then bring out the body to us and we can immediately lay to rest. But no, it is quicker, but it doesn't have to be immediate. So you have time to plan. And here's what I'll say about that. If you have something in place, like you've pre-planned for this, that makes that process so much easier, so much faster. It's not chaos. You know what's happening. You have a funeral home involved. You have Morgan Oaks. Like, we're already working. When it's immediate and you're doing green burial, it causes chaos and a little bit of stress. So, yes, false. You can bury
So
immediately,
yes and no,
but you don't have to bury immediately.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the next one, we kind of sort of covered this, but like it's unsafe and unsanitary.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to this one and myth number 8, which is animals will be able to easily get to the body. So I think when people think of unsanitary, their worry is that, animals are going to dig up the body. You can smell it because you don't have the vault liner. The reality is, again, we're governed by certain rules and regulations. And so we bury 4.5 to 5 feet deep. Animals cannot smell past like 1.5, 2 feet. And so it's not a cemetery where we're finding, the outdoor life coming and digging up bodies. That's not a thing. I think for unsanitary, I don't really know what would be unsanitary other than can you smell the bodies? Absolutely not. Again, not how it works. But there's no digging up. You're not going to smell anything. That's not part of the process. And again, we're regulated to put the body down at a certain range. So it's crazy. I don't know what else would be unsanitary, but that's absolutely false.
Yeah. No, not at all. Okay. So, again, so green burial requires being buried directly in the dirt. Myth number 7.
Yeah. Lots of questions about that, about what we call burial vessel. So, I guess you can't, okay, yes and no. So we have biodegradable caskets. What is that? Well, that is a casket that's made of bamboo, wicker. You could Google search that and look it up. Funeral homes offer that, but basically something that's going to go into the earth and be biodegradable. The most popular thing I would say at our place is a shroud, which is like a cotton cloth that the body's wrapped in, and then you're put in a tray, which is about 3 to 4 inches thick bamboo, and that stays in the plot with your loved one. And so, yes, you can be laid directly back to the dirt, meaning like the shroud doesn't provide, you're not in a casket, it's just the shroud. And honestly, we've seen some beautiful settings with the shroud, some gorgeous flowers on top of it. The shroud is probably the most simple, beautiful way. But of course the caskets are beautiful. It's just everything that goes in is going to be biodegradable. So it's not going to preserve the body any more in a casket than it would in a shroud or tray.
Yeah. Perfect. So false again.
So false
Surprise.
again. But you could, we've had people say do I have to be in a shroud? Again, you would be my first.
You're right.
But you could kind of do, if you just, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that because I can't require you to wear a shroud.
No.
I do need the tray though for the lowering device. But, one gentleman was like, can I just put leaves on?
Yeah.
And I was like, I suppose. I don't know that my staff would love that, but
if your family wants to see that as well.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we kind of busted through those. That's
Okay,
it.
so also false.
Yeah, also
I'm trying to
false.
think if there's any other crazy myths. If you're listening to this
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, well, I have a question, or what I've heard is, I would say shoot me an email or go to our website and you can fill out an awesome form and get more education. If you truly are concerned, like, what is this doing for the environment? One, it's feeding back the plant life, the soil. It's giving nutrients. So we do plant an oak tree, and the vision is that your body is going to fuel that tree. And in the 6 years I've been there, and the 3 years you've been there, we've had so many people say, "I want to come back as a tree."
Yeah.
And so you get to say, instead of putting all these nasty toxins back into the earth, I am giving back to the earth. It's really the way it was. I mean, so if you want to go down a deep dive, pre-Civil War, green burial was the it thing. And then the Civil War happened, and in order to get the soldiers back over, they started embalming. And then the funeral industry took over. And so it kind of just evolved into, this is what we do. We embalm, we do all these things. When the reality is, Morgan Oaks is not a trend or a new hippy dippy kind of thing. It is what we did prior. It's what a lot of cultures, religions were doing. And then it stopped because, one, they couldn't find a place or a space. And so honestly, Morgan Oaks saw a need and filled it. And I really do think that over time, over the next 10 years, that's one of your questions, over the next 10 years, you're going to start to see us evolving to that type of burial. Because it's more affordable. If you go, we again just did a cost comparison, but the average funeral right now, low end, is about $20,000 to $25,000 for one single human. And most families can't afford that. And so then what they're doing is saying, well, I guess I'll just cremate them because I can't afford to do what they wanted. And they didn't pre-plan, and there's no money left over. And so now I have to cremate you and put you on a shelf and let you sit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's a lot of the world. So yes, if you have a question, I would love to hear it. Or you're scared about something, or someone told you on the Google that this is what really happens.
Yeah.
Again, I don't claim to know it all, but it's a great thing to research and look at. So
Well, if we don't, we need to. So yeah.
Send all the questions, all the myths, so we can bust
I
them.
know. Yes, because we will. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what makes us different, what makes Morgan Oaks different. Because it is, in my opinion. But and we have talked about this a little bit, but why not repeat it? But what makes Morgan Oaks unique compared to any other options out there?
Sure. So there's actually quite a few green burial cemeteries. Now, that being said, they're not a Morgan Oaks green burial. They're typically a hybrid, which means they're a traditional cemetery in the front and then a green burial on a road in the back, because what they're finding is that people are requesting green burial and they don't have spaces for it. So they're putting it on a side road, or, finding spaces throughout. So we're unique because we are more like a park-like setting, an open preserve. So 40 acres is a preserve on Morgan Oaks. We're different because we provide a totally different setting. I think our staff is totally different. I do think, you don't have to talk to us, but come walk the property if you're like, I'm intrigued,
Right.
but I don't want to be sold on anything.
Yeah.
We don't have a hard sales push, because I always joke with customers and say, because I don't have a lot to sell you. You either want the burial plot or you don't, or the tree or you don't. But I think it's just a beautiful place and a beautiful setting that was everything is green burial. So I do get that question a lot is, do you only do green burial? Yes, we do cremation burial. It's also green. And then we do full body green burial. So we can take cremated remains as well.
Yeah. And one thing I learned in some research that I was doing with other cemeteries that are now doing some green burial of their own is they still vault. They just take the lid off, turn it upside down. And so you're connected with the casket, the shroud, whatever is connected with the earth that way, but the whole rest of it is still vaulted. And so that's not really green, and then not necessarily telling customers that part of things either. And so I think that's just something that we are fully green all around, and it's just, and the place really just, it sells itself because it's so beautiful out there. But, and it's kind of the same thing, but why do you think that people emotionally connect with it when they see it and they're out there?
Again, I think most people just say being in nature, putting your feet on the ground out there, walking the trails. There's 3 miles of walking trails. And so it just allows you. We have one gentleman, he's actually been on our podcast, and
Yeah,
his wife and son are buried there. And he goes out and he picks up his wife, right? So he like pretends to grab her and walks her through the property. He tells her all the things that are new in his life. It's just different. I don't know that people would do that somewhere else, but I think being in nature, we have a lot of bird watchers that come out. And so, connecting that way with the nature is also a big thing.
Right. Yeah. I think it's great. They like, we hear from families that I don't want to say fun. That sounds bad almost, but that it is fun for them to come out there with their kids to visit their loved ones. And, the kids can play around, and out there. It's just, I don't know. It's just different. Sometimes it's hard to put a word to it, but okay. So where is Green Burial going?
Expanding.
There we go.
Definitely, I think if you are in the industry listening to this, or you're connected in some way, shape, or form, or you're a listener, you're going to start seeing more and more of it, whether it be advertisement from Morgan Oaks or just more people conversating about it. I think death is scary. And so people don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about where am I going. And yesterday we met with some estate planners, and I always say you're guaranteed 2 things, to pay taxes and dying.
Yeah.
And so I know it's not a fun conversation, but take it from someone who's been there already. The conversation needs to be had of what happens when. It doesn't mean it has to happen today or tomorrow, but I think you're going to start seeing a lot more education around green burial. I think it's going to start to be a healthy conversation. I know a lot of us in the industry, especially estate planners and us, are really trying to get people to make decisions early, so that way their kids are not stressed and stuck with the what now. So I think you're going to start seeing more open conversations and a more healthy way to lay someone to rest that actually makes the family feel like, wow, this feels good. I have a couple of older clients that always say, man, I feel like I really adulted today by getting this done. And it's the truth, So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of growing need. You're going to start to see a lot of older cemeteries fill up and know where to put bodies, where we'll never have that issue. So that's going to be great.
I just got that question from somebody, like, what happens when a cemetery is full, and is that something you have to worry about?
Right.
Thankfully, no, not at all.
I'd like to have that problem, but no.
No, we just, being 160 acres, we thankfully won't. But why do you think that communities are becoming more interested in just the conservation, like eco-friendly green burial in general?
It's just healthy for the earth. I think I was just talking with someone who, the younger generation, our generation, like alcohol sales are down 41%. And I think the world is coming to a place where they're like, I want to be healthier. I want to be active. I want to do good for the earth. I want better. And I think people are going to start learning about the statistics that go into what toxins go back into the earth, and they don't want that. People are scared to death of cancer. Yeah. And so all of those things getting put into the earth, and then where does it go? What happened? God forbid, or the people that touch those bodies that they're embalming and all that, what happens? And so I think you're looking at a world that wants to be cleaner, healthier, and better. And so this just seems right. And guess what? It's more affordable. So why wouldn't you want to go that route?
Yeah. And I think that does help too. We have a lot of people who, because we are more affordable, maybe come for that reason, and they get out there and they just fall in love with the idea of it and what it is, and go out and they're our best advocates. They're telling everybody about what green burial is now. So, so I want to let you just hit on this a little bit more, but what role do you think education really does hit and play in this?
Well, I think education is huge, right? Yeah. If you don't know, you assume, or you ask like the Google or ChatGPT, if you're familiar with that. And you assume that what is on there is right. So I think coming out and visually seeing it, asking lots of questions, attending, seminars. We do lots of things, or asking your estate planner. People that are in the industry, ask them. Maybe not like another cemetery, but you could. You can get some pricing from them. Yeah. But I think education is going to be huge. What you don't know does kind of hurt you, right? So ask before you make a full decision. It's okay to say, hey, wait, I want to go look. What are the other options? And I think a good estate planner will tell you all the options and costs involved and things like that. So I think education is huge. And there's lots of resources. Our website is a great resource, and it doesn't just talk about Morgan Oaks. The Green Burial Council has some great stuff. The Cemetery Funeral Bureau has great information you can read about on there too.
Yeah, yeah, we love it. Okay, so what are you most excited about the future of Morgan Oaks and other preserves?
Sure. I think that what's exciting is just growth opportunities. I think, we've built a really cool community of people that actually want to know each other, that are excited to be there. They want to show their families. And I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm excited that, God's put people in my path that we could help in their grief. And we get to continue to do that on a bigger scale, because I know that it's going to become something that more and more people are going to want, and they're going to cross our paths. So, and just making people feel like they're safe and they can grieve peacefully without all the mess, all the chaos. So I'm excited to help families through and with that journey.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good coming out of what's next. What have we learned in these 6 years? Because there's been a lot of learning.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of change. There's a lot of things that we're like, oh, we don't want to do that. Or what do we need to research more? Or who's doing it right? Where do we need to figure that out? I mean, we've we've had bodies shipped to us from Egypt, from New Jersey. So we have people from all over. So if you're listening and you're like, it's too far, it's not. And people will come and we'll visit you.
Yeah.
You can ship flowers to us. You can plant a roadside tree. There's so many options for people across the country to come to Morgan Oaks. So, check out our website and, learn a little bit more. You can always reach out to me and ask questions. But, I think that Morgan Oaks is a place for simplicity, for peacefulness, for walking through grief when you get there in a simple, kind, gentle way. And that this is going to be where the world goes. It will either slowly or quickly evolve into this. So ask lots of questions, learn more about it. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you for being my co-host today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for, we're in season 2. So we have lots of good things to come, some very interesting stories and people that I've set up. So I'm excited for that. If you're a listener and you're like, I'd really like to hear from this or that or them, please write in. I would love to hear from you. You can go to the Morgan Oaks portal and, tell me who you want to hear from or what kind of topic do you want to hear about. But I think it's important for people that are maybe just jumping into listening or have listened for a while but just don't know all the education yet that, these are the things that we can offer. But also you can find us on Instagram, TikTok. We're on TikTok. That's what all the kids are doing now. Facebook, YouTube. So we're on all the social media platforms. Thank you for listening. Walk gently, remember deeply, and celebrate the legacy of life.
Yes.